Welcome back to A Moment in History. I'm Seth Udinsky. In the 16th century, there lived a man who was so brutal that history remembers him by the moniker the Terrible. Now, the word terrible could equally mean awesome and mighty, but in this case, it's best translated as a man of ferocious brutality and uncontrollable rage. He was the first czar of Imperial Russia, that word czar just being a Slavic translation of the old Roman term Caesar. He's credited with bringing Russia out of the Middle Ages and into the early modern world, but his moniker fits his character. He was the notorious first Russian emperor, Ivan IV, known to us as Ivan the Terrible. Now, Ivan's reign is synonymous with the dawn of the Russian Empire, which would last from the beginning of his reign in 1547 all the way to the Russian Revolution of 1917. Ivan came to power in 1547 as the Grand Prince of Moscow. That was a territorial title of nobility essentially equivalent to a king. Before Ivan, the Russian region was essentially much like the rest of medieval Europe, a loosely connected collection of Slavic tribes, tied really only by their Christian heritage, Slavic background, and an historical connection to the old Kievan Rus medieval kingdom. Ivan united this Russian region under one banner, establishing his capital city in Moscow. Now, his familial ties would lay the foundation for much of the course of the Russian Empire's history. His first wife and his favorite was the Queen Anastasia Romanov, and it was the Romanov dynasty that would rule the Russian Empire for the last 300 years of its existence. Now, Ivan was, at least nominally, a zealous practitioner of Russian Orthodox Christianity. He christened the building of perhaps the most beautiful and famous cathedral outside the Hagia Sophia in Eastern Christianity, the Cathedral of St. Basil in Moscow, which has become the premier piece of architecture in Russian history. But Ivan's reputation was not built on Christian pietism. He was allegedly as monstrous as the legends say, perhaps even more so. He consolidated his power through brute force and fear, relying on the backs of serfs and a network of secret police to enforce whatever rules he so desired. While he did bring Russia out of the Middle Ages in many ways, in others he represented every characteristic of a classic medieval king, as his army grew into an elite class to do his bidding. Now, some of the legends surrounding him are jaw-dropping. He allegedly once blinded the creators of St. Basil's Cathedral upon completion of it so as to prevent them from making anything equally as beautiful as that. Mass executions, deadly fits of rage, all of these were commonplace. But the most horrific moment in Ivan's legacy came late in his life and his reign when he got into a fierce familial confrontation with his son and heir to the throne, Ivan V. He allegedly beat his own son to death with his scepter, robbing the kingdom of its next czar in the twilight of his life. He died in controversy in 1584, and while he was no doubt utterly notorious, his reign was instrumental in the formation of the modern Russian identity. He was replaced by his less than capable next oldest son, Fyodor, upon his death. Thanks so much for joining me once again for A Moment in History.